each one. So number one on our list of values is time.
Right.
And time is important because if we are not aware of time, if we're not present in the moment, then really nothing else matters.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You're on autopilot if you are not aware and valuing time.
Then you're back in that habitual place of being automatic and not being in touch with yourself or life.
Right.
This problem. Yeah.
That's all we have is time. So that's
being aware of each moment and valuing each moment.
Yes, and that you are making choices in those moments.
That's right.
Every moment
That's
is
right.
a choice, one choice at a time. So
How
time.
are you consciously using time?
Yes, so time is precious. Okay, number two, air.
Uh,
I love this one because it seems so obvious, but we all take it for granted. We all take it.
Yeah, air. Wow. Hey, the coronavirus. It's all about breathing and not breathing.
Yeah.
It's all about that. So it puts us right in touch with what it means to survive and to be alive.
Yeah.
Got to have the system open, and if it's closed. But air is important because it has to do with the breath. And the breath is related also to the mind, to thinking. So there's a connection between breathing and thinking.
Yes.
Also. So if we ever notice every time you have an emotion, you have an angry emotion, you have angry thoughts, you have depressed thinking, you have depressed breathing. So the breath and the mind go right together. So it has to do with the health of the entire system, physically, mentally, the breath, which is air. And if air is bad, you can start feeling polluted air. I've talked to people and they start having all kinds of allergy symptoms and watery eyes and stuffy nose and sore throats and feeling subdued and low energy because they're not getting pure air. So it's a really fundamental aspect of our existence. It's like it is at the very heart of what it means to be alive.
Absolutely. And the air, taking a simple breath of air can pull you right back into the moment, a mindful breath. And so that goes right back to the number one value of time, being present in time. So air, breathing, super important for our bodies on many levels, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, in the sense of bringing you present in the moment, bringing you into that place of being able to be aware of your surroundings and where you are.
That's right. A third value would be pure water. And so, this body that we have, or are, however you want to look at it, this body is largely made up of fluid, and water is a large percentage of its existence. So how important is water?
Right.
Really high value. So paying attention to what are we doing with water, as far as pollution.
Yeah.
Okay. How can we trust what we're doing with water? Because it could be a real issue in the future if we don't start paying attention to water.
When you eat good foods, clean foods, your body, you're putting good fuel into your vehicle, and then you're having a more quality experience. I think that's really, really important to make note of.
And we have to remember that we're essentially food bodies. We have essentially food bodies. And so it's very important what we're putting into the system in terms of how do we want to feel? Because, most of us would say that really would like to feel energy, high energy. And so much of when people start to feel their health or lack of health, it has to do with the shifting of the energy level.
Sure.
So in good, the energy is usually pretty high. When we're feeling down, energy can be very low. So there are foods, there's forms of nutrition that will facilitate this and energize the body. And there's also types of eating and so forth that would do the opposite and begin to deplete that energy.
It's also important to note too, it's not just what we put in our body, but what we use on our bodies. So if we are using chemical products, I mean, the skin is a huge part of our body. And think of what you're putting on your skin, what soaps you're using daily. So the cleanliness of those products also makes a difference in the experience. But I tell you what, one of the simplest ways is to what I call intuitive eating, and really just tapping into the body and what does the body need, because you will have that little indicator in there that says, no, you don't need more of that, or, you know, this is a good stopping place, or I probably should eat that. These little voices that we avoid because maybe it's not as fun, you know, or whatever, pleasurable. But it's important. So it's really important. Of course, I'm going to say to trust the intuition, even when it comes to food, to what you put on your skin, to what you expose your physical body to. All very important.
Preventive health care, another value. Health care. A lot easier to prevent a problem rather than wait for it to evolve to the point where you have to treat it.
Absolutely.
So I think one of the values that we could have to do with an emphasis on preventive health care.
Mm-hmm.
So prevention and not waiting to need treatment.
Sure. Sure.
If you need treatment, there are things you can do then too that would be either better or worse for what's going on. But prevention. An education which includes teaching people how to be aware of themselves and take responsibility for their lives. And we don't seem to have that right now. There's not much emphasis. And what I'm saying is an educational system where kids at very young ages begin to get in touch with themselves, begin to notice their feelings, seeing their thoughts. People have called this mindfulness, which is fine. And this can be trained, this can be learned, and teachers can teach it, and kids can learn it. So in the public education system, we can start to facilitate more of an, for education needs to facilitate more of an awareness of our feelings and our thoughts, and not just an emphasis on behavior. Behavior is important, but behavior stems from what's happening with our thinking and our feeling.
Absolutely.
But we kind of forget that behavior is more of an effect than it is a cause.
Right.
So we need to start addressing causes in our educational system.
Yes, it's not about treating the symptom. It's really getting to the root of the situation. That's where the work needs to be done, of course.
And these emotional behavioral issues, then, if they're addressed at a deeper level, through kids getting in touch mindfully with what's happening inside themselves, start to learn what it means to take responsibility for their own lives. They start to no longer think of themselves as a victim.
Right.
So-and-so made me angry, and that's why I'm angry. You know, I have a right to be angry. So the whole victim mentality is putting causes outside of ourselves. We become the effect. So these kids can learn in the educational system how to become more aware of themselves and understand their inner life as well as just their outer life, and start to take responsibility for their existence.
Absolutely. And that is very simple work that can be done in the home. I work with that. I have 3 children, and things come up. Trust me, people get blamed all the time. And we always come back to the only thing that we can control is ourselves and how we react in this situation, and what choices are we going to make. And we talk a lot about that cycle going round and round. If somebody hits somebody, somebody hits somebody back, somebody hits, you know, and I always say, okay, who's going to make the better choice? And yeah, I'll always get one of them, I will, you know, they all want to make the choice, you know. But what they're seeing in that means they have control in that situation of their reaction, of their choice. So it's empowering, and it also removes that victim mentality, saying, no, you put yourself in that situation. So now what are you going to do with it? Or the situation is just coming up. What are you going to do with it? It shows them that they really do have more control than they
teachers to be able to teach this to the kids, which the teachers have to have that as part of their life
Sure.
and impart the knowledge. So I'm
Right.
just saying. So we're talking about a really a more complete educational system of not just the outer but also the inner life.
Right.
You know, clean energy, reducing pollution, and being more aware of how we use our energy.
Mhm.
Use clean energy, and this is not an easy issue to solve, but we need to have research going on and people putting energy into understanding this and being funded to be able to do this. Um, we need to start making some shifts in that area, which might mean we have to give up certain things in our life that we've been used to, um, which is happening right now with this virus.
Yeah.
It's like we have to understand that a lot of our stressful issues have to do with being attached to things that the way they are, and we kind of forget the future. Like, what does this mean in terms of years down the line? And so we're so caught up just in the moment without the realization that this is a process.
Sure. Sure. And to be gentle with the process.
So clean energy,
Mhm.
conflict resolution, and we've addressed this too. We're on conflict resolution, understanding both sides of an issue
Mhm.
in order to reach some kind of consensus. See, consensus is a lot different than reaching a compromise. In other words, if you and I had a disagreement and I was able to understand your position, you understood my position, and we had a desire to find out how we could get a win-win situation out of this, that
Mhm.
we would then, that triad that we talked about before, we'd reach that third point of integration.
Yeah.
And instead of the compromise along that baseline, we now reach that top of the triad, which has to do with synthesis, being able to integrate and put together. So conflict resolution, understanding both sides of an issue. And it has to start with, I'm really interested in what you have to say about what your belief is and what's going on with you. So
Yeah.
let me know how you feel. And I want to feed back to you what I'm hearing you say so
Yeah.
that you know that I'm getting it,
Yeah.
getting what you're all about. And then it gets reversed. And the same thing here is that you're asking me to make myself and disclose myself, to make myself transparent. I can start to talk to you about my feelings and my thoughts.
Mhm.
You can put yourself in my place. So I need to put myself in your place, Alyssa. You need to put yourself in my place.
Yeah.
Sort of understand where we're coming from. And also the opportunity to feed back to the other to make sure they're getting it. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. That's where I'm at. And
Right.
that's the data that begins to resolve this whole problem of conflict, because now you can work with that information.
Absolutely. And it's so important that to be open-minded, just to even get to that place, you have to open up to the other person's view, which I believe is super important that you acknowledge and respect, truly in your heart, respect that other person. There has to be a level of respect and integrity in order for that to even happen, because if you go around thinking you're above other people's opinions, you can't truly come to that integration point.
I think the way to, you're right, you're exactly right, that at the beginning, there has to be a kind of respect
Mhm.
and acceptance for this is another living being. It's like both of us are in this thing called life,
Right,
both related to this much larger issue of life.
right,
So it's like when you see that we're both part of the whole, and you can start to work with that because now we start to recognize our oneness with each other. So our differences are within this oneness, right? Our
right,
differences are within this oneness. This is the key. Differences are within this oneness.
right.
We start to feel that. This is no theory. This is like you can find the information everywhere that will prove to you that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
We're
Well,
all related. We're all connected.
absolutely. And theories and proof aside, check into yourself, really check into the deeper level of self, and you will realize that connection. You'll realize that oneness. Everybody's dealt a different hand. It's not our job to judge or criticize or micromanage somebody else's cards. What's their experience is their own to experience. and the individual has to be accountable for the individual experience. So yeah, that respect is huge, huge, huge.
Yes. And of course, the other value would be adequate shelter. And that's kind of one of the obvious things, making sure people have adequate shelter. Uh, and then another value would be something like, how are we going to do our science? Because we need to have, a lot of our science needs to be focused on investigating consciousness, the human experience, as well as human mindset. The individual's mindset influences their health, their performance, their relationships. That's at on a smaller scale. We talk about the mindset, the individual mindset. On the larger scale, we can investigate what is consciousness, what is it? But these larger questions, it connects us to the whole, that connects to our that oneness we're just talking about. We need to have more research and exploration into our own inner experience, which is like everyday life. We don't have a science of everyday life. We don't have a science of everyday life. Like, what's going on? How do I bore myself? How do I make myself depressed? How do I make choices? Where are decisions really coming from? Investigating the inner experience to get to the causal level of these kinds of questions. It's a different kind of science now. We've now expanded science to include the inner as well as the outer, as we did with education. So we talk about new businesses that would be funded based on these kinds of values. Existing businesses that are also based on these kinds of values. This is a whole different way of getting back into our economy, because this is a big shift. It's not like all of a sudden it doesn't matter what we're producing or what kind of services we're providing, as long as we're making money doing it. And the whole emphasis on money, and we talk about the problem of greed, is because we're not focused on the product or the service, we're focused on the money. And so until we can start to realize that value in itself, no problem with money, it's all has to do with how it's being handled and what it's focused on. And so this is the difficult part. It's like, how do we make this shift? And we all wrapped up in habits. Everybody's wrapped up in habits. We've all been conditioned heavily.
Yes.
Even though you can say, oh, it sounds really good, And then the next day you go right back to the same habits again.
Right.
So the thing is, we have to start developing an alertness within ourselves as a population. Just being more aware and alert to our lives and noticing the decisions we're making, the choices we're making. Because for this to happen, to facilitate value-based businesses, have to do with where you're going to spend your dollar.
Right. Yeah. So essentially what we're talking about is raising the bar on how we define value